All right. It is that time of the month, the September edition of the Hostaway Webinar Series. So my name's Ben. I'm on the marketing team here at Hostaway. I've been with Hostaway for a year now. Marcus couldn't make it today. He's jet setting off somewhere. So I have the honor of being in his seat for this edition of the Hostaway Webinar Series, which as the title would indicate, we're going to talk about how you can make money in short-term rentals without actually owning property. And as mentioned, I am from the marketing team, and I would be summarily fired from the marketing team if I didn't take this opportunity to plug our user conference, Hostaway, coming up November 7th and 8th in Miami, Florida. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're starting to release the agenda. We're starting to get the speakers lined up and confirmed. It's going to be really fun. We're throwing a great party afterwards, as we always do. So if you aren't signed up already, you're interested, or if you just want to get some more information, head on over to hostchella.com and get your ticket there. We're running out of tickets, so if you want to make it, and we know you do, make sure to go and grab your ticket there. So with all of that said, let's get into it today. So I would like to introduce our guest today. His name is Kyle Loveland. And Kyle, why don't you come on and tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
Hey everybody, my name is Kyle. Thanks for the intro, Ben. And I am one of Hostaway's resident short-term rental operators and short-term rental experts. I came to Hostaway after having my own career as a short-term rental operator in the greater Philadelphia area. I work remotely in Cape May, New Jersey right now, which is a vacation resort down here. So, you know, my particular work experience includes design, market analysis, SEO, revenue management, and workflow automation. So I've been able to bring that into my work at Hostaway. In addition, I'm working on my own project still. So I have a micro resort that I'm working with investors on in the Cape May area. You can follow along at stay.dreamspace on Instagram if you want to check it out. But we're getting close on that one. So Hostaway was really, for me, first a need for my own business. And I came to Hostaway through the normal route of going through a demo. And after having a great conversation with one of the product specialists, Steven Sexton, shout out to him, I decided to join the company, and I am now Hostaway's first solutions engineer. So I work with prospective clients to make sure that we're able to overcome any technical hurdles they have and make sure that Hostaway is the right fit for them. So I've worked with hundreds of different business operators with all different models, and I'm really excited in this webinar we can start sharing some experience as to how they're operating, and especially focus on how people are making money in the short-term rental space without actually owning property themselves.
I mean, Kyle's a bit of a unicorn within Hostaway because he's got the intimate knowledge that makes the entire company better because we can focus on the people we serve. Kyle's a Hostaway user himself. So if you have questions, we can really kind of run the gamut with the questions on this one for Kyle. Also, you might see there that last bullet point, he's a 6-time national Latin exam participant. He didn't mention that in his bio because he didn't know I was going to include that fun fact. But Kyle, super happy to have you. How long have you been at Hostaway again?
I've been at Hostaway for a year, and I've been in the short-term rental space for, I guess, going on 4 years now. Yeah.
And let me do a little bit of the interviews that the marketing team has been doing in terms of talking with customers and prospects. How did you hear about Hostaway originally?
So for me, it came down to to my own research. I think the marketing team did a really great job on some Google SEO back there. I came from a different property management software that wasn't necessarily meeting my needs. I don't want to say what it was. It was with Lesty. We were working with some software, and ultimately I just needed some different tools, different customer support. And so it was really a decision that boiled down to who has the top channel connections, the automations that I would need to implement, and then that crucial customer support aspect.
Very cool. Very cool. Okay. Well, so first of all, thanks again for joining us. I'm looking forward to getting into the sort of the meat of the topic today. But just to make sure that we could confirm that you are who you say you are, that you are in fact managing partner at Dreamspace, I pulled up one of your listings. So I thought if we can go to the next slide there. So can you tell us a little bit about the Octopus Cottage? It's great to know that you are indeed who you say you are. But I came across this listing and I just thought, like, aesthetically, it's so pleasing, these images, the photos for sure, and then the description. But I wonder if you could give us a little bit of the spiel and the background on Octopus Cottage.
Oh boy. All right. Well, you really are putting me on the spot. So yeah, this is one of my properties. It was a family COVID project that we did. This is also located in Cape May, New Jersey. So it's a 1-bed, 1-bath. Really, at the before photos, which you can see on that Instagram account, it was rough. And so this is one of my personal properties. Doesn't quite fall under not owning it, which is our subject today, but I think there's a lot that we could draw from this. So I'm really happy with how it ended up. Design wise, it performs extremely well on Airbnb. I use AirDNA and Price Labs analytics to make sure that all the properties that I'm managing or evaluating are doing well or have the potential to do well. And so for this one, after it was finished and operational for a year, it ended up being the most highest revenue generating 1-bed, 1-bath in the state of New Jersey, according to those two sources. So this is a good one to put up, Ben. I'm happy to go into it.
And we talk a lot on the marketing team, same with our customer success team. We really want to talk about how we can get the most out of your listings, optimize the listings, and optimize doesn't just mean the creative SEO, which I noticed that you lumped into the title there, but it's the images, and how important professional images are. And like I said, when I first saw this, I mean, the color scheme, everything about this page, it screams professional. So how did you decide? First of all, did you take these pictures yourself? I doubt you did. No, go back just one for now. Slide, thank you. I assume you didn't take these pictures yourself, but maybe you have another skill that I didn't know about. But can you just talk a little bit about the importance of images and maybe how you decided to go about it with this particular listing?
Yeah, so I haven't gotten into professional photography. That doesn't fall under my my LinkedIn profile. But I believe in the importance of investing in photos. I mean, everything around the business starts with this top end of the funnel. Channels like Airbnb, it's all about getting attention. That's what their algorithms are based on. So making sure that your first photo, your hero photo, and then the first 5 are really top notch, and also show a diversity on your property. You don't want them to all be of the same space or different angles that tell the same story. So you really want to pique the interest of a potential guest and make sure that they first click on the listing and then start scrolling through, because that's what Airbnb is going to use to bump you even higher in the ranks. And it really is a snowball effect there. So for example, with this listing, showing different amenities, having colors that sort of complement one another, but appear in a way that is pleasing, I think was important. And I hired a local real estate photographer for this. For my property that's coming up, this micro resort, we're going to be hiring an architectural photographer, which for really high end listings, you don't necessarily want somebody who's just capturing the size of the space, but you really want to focus on even the smaller details. So someone who's experienced with architectural magazines and doing those detailed shots. It's all about breaking up the corner to corner photos with things that just give a visual break in your magazine spread that you're creating on these channels.
And if you feel comfortable sharing, and actually you're going to have to share anyway, even if you're a little uncomfortable about it, how much did you pay for these photos?
I believe that is part of my contractual agreement. No, for the photos for Octopus Cottage, I mean, it's a pretty small place, and going rates for photographers will vary. I believe we paid $400, $500 for this, and then the Coastal Quad. This is micro resort. Our initial quote was around $2,000, which is not cheap, but again, it all pays dividends. And it's if you're going to invest in a single thing that I see so many people who are missing out on, shot on iPhone is not acceptable when it comes to really having a high performing Airbnb property.
Right.
No offense to iPhone. I love them.
No offense to iPhone users. Yeah, the iPhone users everywhere. So yeah, I mean, that all makes sense. And I really do, not to overemphasize it, I really do love the photos. But there are a couple photos that aren't shot by a professional in your listing. So Assad, if you go to the next slide. So these are the map. First of all, I just love maps. I'm kind of a map nerd, so that's weird. But this stood out to me because it's almost like you were answering a question that I didn't know I had already, which was the map, the distance to some local hotspots. It's a very simple thing. I believe you told me you did it in Canva. So it's pretty simple, but I think there's a lot of value to it. So I'm just curious, what led you to want to include something like this, a map like this with the distances?
Yeah, so I think it's really astute. And as a fellow, I think it's a cartophile. I appreciate a good map myself. But the idea behind this is again, you're trying to tell a story on your listing, and so not every photo is necessarily going to look like it needs to be pulled out of Architecture Digest. Some of them, like these photos, are really to communicate information to a potential guest that will help you to avoid answering the same question over and over again. We all know that happens because potential guests are not necessarily reading descriptions. In fact, I don't put quite as much stock in a description for a lot of things, and we can get into that. But in terms of being able to communicate information, I was always getting asked, how far are you away from Stone Harbor? How far are you away from Wildwood? And so a quick mock-up on Canva, again, very easy software to use. This isn't like Adobe Photoshop. It's meant to be user-friendly. It took maybe 5 minutes, and there we go. We have a map that has eliminated that question from, I think, really ever being asked again. Likewise, if you have photos of what games are in the property, or if you have a well-stocked kitchen showing that in photo form, that's where it's most likely going to be conveyed to the guest or whoever's searching for your property online. So I recommend doing that and using these photos as an opportunity to augment your description.
Who is the board game curator who has chosen these? Because I'm always curious. I mean, as a traveler myself, especially when you're going to a cottage, board games are kind of a given, right? But you don't really know which ones you're going to get. You don't know what condition they're in. So maybe it's a little bit of a pedantic point, but I'm curious, like, how did you choose which board games to use, and how do you choose how to show them off?
So I am board game czar. I love a good board game. This weekend I'm going to be doing one on Sunday. So if that gives you an idea of the crazy kind of life I lead, I've got some friends coming over for that. But I think Scrabble, Monopoly. There's Battleship, which is actually, you can't really see what it is in that photo, unfortunately. That's the camouflage one. Uno is popular. And Catan is one of my personal favorites, as well as a chess set, because you gotta have one of those at least in a unit. It feels like the OG. And then in terms of choosing games, I think having that mix, maybe a couple more niche things that people haven't played themselves yet, and then all of those classics. It's always important to get that mix. We also have I think 1,000-piece puzzle in there. And that's of an octopus, which is in keeping with the whole octopus cottage theme. So having a fun theme for property is something that I normally suggest as a tangent here. It's tough to ride the line though. Our property is certainly a luxury listing. The rates are not inexpensive by any means. And so you have to ride the line between a property that is tastefully themed and kitsch. And that's one of the the challenges and the way that I like to approach setting up a space that's really fun, actually.
Yeah, I mean, and we'll move on after this, but I just wanted to call out that everything on your listing removes a potential point of friction, I think, for the traveler. Even myself, as I was going through the fast Wi-Fi, actually quantifying the fast Wi-Fi and having it very clearly stated that is appropriate for video calls. You can do video calls on it. And again, I don't know if that's something I would necessarily think about right away, but the fact that you're removing those points of friction with good descriptor, with good amenities, with the pictures, I just think it's a good model to look at. So good on you for doing a good listing. I'd be a little worried if you didn't do a good listing, I suppose, given your experience and where you work, but good on you for that. So let's move on then to the topic at hand here. Go to the next slide. So Kyle, I'm going to just pass the mic over to you. Let's talk a little bit about the different ways that you can make money in short-term rentals without necessarily owning the property.
Yeah, so I love this topic, and I'm so glad that I was able to come on and speak about it today, because I really believe that short-term rentals are one of the most fun things you can do in real estate, and it's not something where you have to have your own property to get into it, right? If it's a long-term rental, you're more limited in what you can do without actually owning the property. So I want to break it down into 3 different categories of ways that you can make money without having to have that trust fund or whatever to get started. I mean, we all know where interest rates and housing prices are, at least in the U.S. currently, and I've heard Canada's even more difficult right now. So the first one is owner operator. So this is somebody who is managing a property and they own it. And that's great. And again, that does, you're saying, well, that doesn't help me if I'm not the owner. But there are a lot of ways to get into this. The first one is really partnership. And that's what it would have to come down to. Of course, there's friends and family. If you don't have any friends, if you don't have any family, I would say start with co-hosting, with gathering knowledge. And then eventually, if you can find an owner of a long-term rental that maybe isn't as tech savvy, maybe they don't have the knowledge to help them get on Airbnb, and you can navigate a deal with them that will be able to double or triple the amount of revenue they're getting on a property by making the updates that are necessary for short term, and then you would be the person to operate it, to manage it. In a case like that, you would want to set up some sort of a relationship or a contract where you are given equity based on certain milestones or key performance indicators that are set up that works to everybody's advantage, right? If they're making more money with the property than they ever have, then maybe you can share in that upside, the appreciation of the property, the improvements that you've made that actually increase the value of the property itself. So that's the first one, and people are able to get in that way. If you have the opportunity, I'd say that's a great way to start. That's how I started. Now, the next one would be property management. So people set up property management companies. I hear tons of stories about, and I've met tons of property managers who have the experience of cleaning properties, right? Maybe they had a cleaning business first, and they realized, if I could just respond to guests, I basically have a property management company already. So they transition over to being that full service property manager for short-term rentals. And that's how they get in. Now, this is much more of an occupational situation. If you're going to be a professional property manager, there are requirements with real estate in some states or jurisdictions. So you'd have to be careful of that type of thing and do your due diligence. But professionalizing the property management side of things is how many people scale and then are able to use the money that they've made managing other people's properties to be able to buy their own, and they get into it that way. And then lastly, rental arbitrage. So this is the one that I think most people are interested in hearing about because it's just so different. Essentially, rental arbitrage is where you take a long-term rental that someone owns that they have listed. And they might want a certain amount of money per month for it. And if you do your research and you find that for the same month as a short-term rental, they could make more money, and you're able to get the property owner to agree to you subletting that property, then you're able to capture the difference between what you were paying in that monthly or that yearly lease, and what you're able to make by listing it as a short-term rental. This is a really great situation for some people. It requires a lot of operational efficiency because as you scale it, you need to really have your cleaners, your systems down pat. But it's a way to get in. It's a very low barrier to entry because you only have that whatever that agreement is between you and the property owner. There's a lot of reasons why property owners would want to do this in the first place, right? A lot of them aren't willing to make the investments to make it a short-term rental. They don't want to deal with the headaches of guests, all of the things that we know as short-term rental operators that you would encounter. But they want to be able to have somebody who is going to rent the place, that's going to leave it in great condition because you need that for the next guest. So it's constantly being updated. It's being well maintained, and you can also make sure that you have longer lease terms, perhaps. So instead of month to month, you could agree to a contract of 1, 2, maybe even 3 years, depending on how you do it. And that way, the landlord is going to know that they have a guaranteed income for a much longer period of time. And so there's a lot of favorability on both sides here. And it's really in taking advantage of this market inefficiency, you're able to make money, you get the experience of operating a short-term rental, and you can either choose to scale with a model like this, or you can use this as a jumping off point for your own properties.
Yeah, a little bit of inside baseball here. So I'm the content marketing guy here, and so I handle the blog, and rental arbitrage related topics are far and away our most popular search blogs and viewed blogs. And I think a lot of it, for the reasons you just kind of highlighted there. Thank you for everyone who's submitting questions, and we'll get to some of them at the end, but I wanted to, I'll bring this question up to you right now, Kyle, from anonymous attendee. That's not your real name. Is there still a business opportunity for rental arbitrage while also having a property manager taking a percentage and managing the property as opposed to you yourself doing it?
So that's a great question, anonymous. I mean, it depends. It's one of those things that it depends on your market. I'm a huge proponent in doing your research. Like I've already plugged. Nobody's paying me to say it, but AirDNA, Price Labs, Market Dashboard. There are a lot of great resources out there. Key Data, for example, that will give you the insight to be able to make a more informed judgment call on this. So if you have a property and say it's $1,000 per month in rent to the original owner of it, and you know that you're able to make $3,000 per month as a short-term rental, and that's not unreasonable. Typically you'd see at least double to triple your long-term rent in the short-term space. So given this scenario, you've got $3,000. Now, if you're paying a short-term rental manager, going rate for that is between 20 and 40% of your gross revenue. So if it's 20%, let's say you're paying $600. So the $600 plus the $1,000 per month, you're at $1,600. So you would be able to net $1,400 in that situation. Of course, now you're going to have to calculate in all those other expenses associated with the short-term rental, which is replacement linens, that type of thing. In that case, if it works out like that, then yeah, you're most likely to be in the green, and people will even do this with timeshares. So there are plenty of operators who are able to manage timeshares on behalf of the timeshare owners, and using the time that they don't actually spend there, they have it worked out, and it's much tighter margins. But when you're talking about this across thousands of timeshares, there are people who are making millions of dollars doing it that way.
Thank you. That's a great question. Why don't we move to the next slide, Assad, which you already dove in to the rental arbitrage side of things really well. But let me ask you this then. I mean, why wouldn't someone go for a rental arbitrage model?
It's really hard to get. So you have to find somebody who's willing to go with you on this. They may be nervous about renting to short-term tenants because it could be in a building, say, and they're afraid that there would be noise complaints or things like that. Nobody wants parties to be hosted at the property, and they simply might not be comfortable with this subletting agreement. That's one of the largest hurdles for it. The next one would be the downside around rental arbitrage is that you really aren't able to capture any of the upside of owning the property by definition. So any type of appreciation that happens in the market, any changes that you make to the property to improve how it looks and how it performs on Airbnb, for example, you're not going to get any of that upside if you ever sell it, or if the property owner sells it, because you aren't the property owner. So you miss out on that, and that is really the part of building a real estate portfolio that serves you well in the long term. So what I say typically is that rental arbitrage is a great way to make income. It's a great way to start showing things in your bank account, showing numbers in your bank account, and building that cash pile. But it's not going to build wealth. It's not going to give you the advantages in being able to mortgage or leverage against the property itself to be able to expand. At the end of the day, your business is just in the relationships and that transactional efficiency that you've created. So I would say that as long as you're aware of that there are those significant downsides to the model, then it's a great starting point. And that's really all you have to be aware of. Now, especially if you're looking to get into this and you have if you're able to find a landlord that is willing to try this with you. Maybe you do that trial period, maybe do a 6-month lease or a 1-year lease and see how it goes, and then you can re-up for a multi-year contract. In that case, if you're looking to build those relationships, it's even better to do it in a building where the landlord owns multiple units, or maybe they own the entire building and they're looking to pilot this on 1 or 2 listings first. If that's successful, then you can effectively start running like a hotel style operation in a single building, and that could be a business in itself for you to start. So that's like the holy grail of rental arbitrage. And if you're near a city, if you start doing the research and you're able to find a situation like this, all the more power to you, and go after it.
Right on. Oh, that's great. Okay, so we've explored a couple different business models. I think you've kind of weighed the pros and cons for all of them. So let's go into the next step then. So the next step is you've chosen a business model and you're ready to get going, or you're ready to pivot or whatever. So what's next, I guess, is the question, and that's also the title of the next slide, Asad. So what's next? And this is a very famous LinkedIn quote that I saw recently, which is, "There are riches in the niches." And Kyle, what does that expression mean to you in this context?
Yeah, so I think whatever you end up doing, whether it's being a short-term rental owner operator, whether it's rental arbitrage, whether it's managing properties, find what you're best at, what you enjoy doing, and what has turned out to be profitable, and double down on it. There are so many people who have more difficulty scaling because they have tried, a little bit of everything, and they can't quite integrate it into one cohesive business plan, and it makes it more difficult if you're looking to scale. So that's really what it comes down to. If you're able to find a niche or a niche that is it falls that other people really aren't taking advantage of as much. Say in your market, there just aren't a lot of 2-bedroom properties or 3-bedroom properties that are dog friendly. You could be the person providing that particular type of stay to people who are coming in. Now, it's difficult to find these. You need to find something that again works and that can scale. But if you're able to do that, that's really where the money's made. When I'm speaking with all of the really successful, the enterprise level prospects who are coming to Hostaway, the the people that are on the ball the most, that have the most vertical trajectory in their business, are the ones who have figured this out. They figured out what they do well, and then they have done everything that they can to make it as efficient as possible. They're looking for every way to automate and to simplify their workflow, and that's the key. So removing whatever friction it is, and being completely focused on continuing along that path. So whatever you choose to do, there's no wrong answer there, except for the ones that aren't profitable. But I would say pick one, and the more specific, the more niche, the better for you in the long term.
So what is the niche that Octopus Cottage, the listing that we looked at earlier, like what niche does that inhabit?
Yeah. So in our area, there are a ton of boutique hotels. There are a ton of properties that are geared toward vacation rentals. There are a ton of luxury vacation rentals. But what there aren't a ton of are 1 bed, 1 bath luxury vacation rentals that are right next to a dog-friendly beach and are also a dog-friendly property. We have found that the dogs are key to it, as much as they provide their own set of problems and requirements. That's something that we're willing to do, and it's turned out to be really successful because of it. So the quad that I'm doing is going to be the exact same thing. We're basically going to test out the hypothesis that in this area, in this market, there's a demand, there's excess demand for this particular type of property. So we're going to do it 4 more times, and we will see. But yeah, I think tidy luxury generally is what my goal is with Dreamspace. That's the path we're continuing down. It doesn't necessarily have to be this area, but what we bring is the packaging of really high-end amenities and a much more elevated experience in terms of the fit and finish of the spaces into spaces that are much smaller than you would normally associate with being a luxury property.
And I know that there's no way to sort of hack your way to finding your niche, but if you could just sort of, give some advice to the audience. I mean, what are some things to look out for? What is there to notice that helps someone really identify, right, there's a bit of a gap in this area?
Yeah, so I would say that in addition to the places that I already described, like AirDNA and Price Labs for doing research, go to Airbnb. On a slide that we had previously here, it had all the amenities on Octopus Cottage, and those are right below the photos on a listing. They're curated by Airbnb to be able to show what people are really looking for in your particular area. And if you do that for the most successful listings on Airbnb in a given market, you're going to get an idea of what guests are looking for. You can use the Airbnb search that will also list the proper the popular amenities in a given area, and I would use that to basically quantify. Okay, well, next summer, let's see how many to give a range of time where you're going to be able to see the most possible listings. Let's see how many get filtered out when I turn off pet friendly, or when I turn off hot tub, or whatever it is, and get an idea of how many places are offering a given amenity that is already proven to be a popular search on Airbnb. And by being able to cross-reference those two things, you're going to get a really good feel for what people want and what people are being underserved. And that's for me on our next property, for example, I saw that there were only 2 places in our area that offered like a gym as an amenity. And so we are putting in a gym, and hopefully there will be a lot of people coming from Philadelphia and New York who need to get that cardio fix, and we'll be able to provide it. It also doesn't hurt that amenity spiked during the last pandemic, and it helps in terms of hopefully not having one of those again. But if people ever do need to use gym facilities and public facilities are available, it's a consideration.
How does a business model, or even a niche, perhaps, the business in general, to what extent does that dictate which vacation rental software you use, be it PMS or be it a point solution?
Yeah, I think it makes all the difference. The first thing that I say to almost anyone, because they are, in general, if you're a short-term rental operator, you want to be on as many channels as possible. At the very least, Airbnb, Vrbo, Booking.com, if you are in a market where you either get a lot of international travel or if you're in Europe, it's very popular. Vrbo, unless you have shared spaces or something like that as part of your business model, you want to be there. Airbnb pretty much captures everybody. And I would say, if you aren't on there, there's something that you can do to boost your revenue very easily. But once you have those channels decided on, go to the property management softwares that have the best relationships with those channels, because not all connections are built equally. We at Hostaway, for example, and one of the deciding factors for me when I was objectively analyzing my options, we have the top tier of two-way API connection with Airbnb, Vrbo, and Booking.com, which is extremely difficult to maintain year after year because there's a lot of criteria that goes along with that. But what it leads to is greater reliability and more that can be done within Hostaway. So I'm one of those people that, like, if I can make it a little bit more efficient, if I can save a little bit of time, I'm going to do that because I try to keep as much of my time for myself as possible. So if I am able to do more from Hostaway rather than having to go back to Vrbo or Airbnb, then I'm going to do it. And so seeing then which places will be able to provide the automations that you need to be able to simplify your workflow, that's my next criteria. So that would be my number one and number two. And then number three that really can't be forgotten is having fantastic support behind it. Because no matter what PMS you go with, things will happen. It might not be the fault of the PMS, it might be the channel, who knows? But you need to be able to get somebody on the phone, because if your entire business is centralized on one software, that software needs to be reliable, or that software needs to be providing you the support to make sure that you're not going to lose money because of them. And I almost consider that as important as property insurance or anything else that you're using to safeguard your business.
Yeah, this seems like a good opportunity for me to do a couple shameless plugs for Hostaway. So if you recall at the beginning of the webinar, we looked at that map with all the pins that showed that we have employees all across the world, team members all across the world. That's one of the main reasons why we can offer 24/7 support. Also, when you were talking about connectivity, I was recently talking with James Fedtech is his name. He's got a great YouTube channel, B&B Mastery, got a community too. And I was sort of just asking him, why do you like Hostaway so much? And a big thing he said was the connectivity with the OTAs. He said a lot of people say it's good, it's kind of a broad word. We have really good connectivity, but when you actually get into the nitty gritty of it, it's really like onerous, frankly, to get get the premier partnership. And he says, quote, it's been years and years since he had a double booking with Hostaway. So, and I'm remembering another call I had with a client. Rent the Play is what they're called, and they really talked about how important the integrations were with Hostaway specifically. You're a tech savvy guy. To what extent are integrations important in running your day to day? Beyond the OTAs.
No, I mean that's totally true. I think that the integrations that Hostaway has, what are we up to? Is it over 200? I can't even keep track because they're getting added so quickly. I take a lot of advantage of them. I mean, Hostaway strives to be an all-in-one solution, but there are some areas where if you need a very particular feature that our team just hasn't gotten around to building out yet, then you've got to go elsewhere still. So TouchStay, for example, for guidebooks, I'm using them. Fantastic guidebook resource. Highly recommend it. I use Price Labs for my revenue management. Let's see. I have been testing out several AI messaging tools. Bestie AI and Host AI are both great. They don't necessarily fit my business needs quite as much, but I'm such an AI nerd that I really enjoy being able to compare and contrast what responses get generated and try to figure out where that part of the market is going, which is very exciting. And then, yeah, in terms of other integrations, Breezeway and Turno are really important ones. If you're doing any more cleaning management, I mean, Breezeway is probably the largest integration in the space. So yeah, there are a ton of them. Whatever you need for your particular needs. Gosh, yeah, I don't. I mean, I could spend all day going into this. My tech stack is like a 20 items on a spreadsheet. So yeah, it's might be another presentation perhaps.
Kyle, thank you for being so candid and open with your answers. It's been it's been a real joy to get to learn a bit more about your business and to chat with you. Let's move on to the Q&As. Go to the next slide, Assad. I think I have one thing to plug before that. So this is another shameless plug for some of our great reports and guides that we have. They're all free. You can download them if you don't have them already. I will share the links in the chat. But let's go to the Q&A. So I've got two here. Kyle, what's the typical commission fee collected for property managers in the STR space?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I would say it's around 20%. 20 to 25% is a typical commission. Now there are places that are much higher than that, and you might be able to find someone who will do it for less. I worry about anybody who's charging less than 15% or less for short-term rental property management. You're getting much closer to what long-term property management is doing, and honestly, short-term is just so much more labor-intensive. Not only are you managing turnovers it could be every few days, every day, even at times, but you have all the guest communication, the revenue management. There's a lot more that goes into it. So yeah, I would say absolutely keep it to 20% or more if you're looking to start up a property management company for STRs. Hopefully that answers your question.
Couple arbitrage specific questions here. So question is, how does insurance work for arbitrage? I found it very difficult to find insurance for my short-term rental owner occupied. I assume arbitrage is even more challenging.
Yeah, it certainly can be. And there are plenty of damage protection integrations that we have. Superhog, Safely. We have a couple of great options there. I'd recommend you take a look at our integrations on our marketplace. In terms of the actual insurance, though, I mean, yeah, it will depend. You're going to have to find an insurance company that's willing to take on short-term rentals and the liability associated with them. I mean, I found one that's New Jersey specific, but it is a consideration, and you want to make sure that you're protected. You know, of course, I have no legal experience, and I certainly am not an insurance agent. So yeah, can't really give you a ton of direction there, but definitely it's something that's been important for me. Yeah. Do we have another one, Ben?
We got a couple more. So should you only be doing rental arbitrage with units located close to you?
Oh, this is a loaded one. Yeah, I think this is definitely open for debate. Because we live in a world now where this webinar is being conducted. I mean, Ben, where are you coming from today?
I'm in Vancouver, Canada.
Okay, so you're in Vancouver. I'm in Cape May, and we have people all around the world who are part of this webinar, and it's going smoothly. And we have a lot of technology now for short-term rentals that allows it to be possible for you to manage a property on the other side of your country. That being said, I recommend starting close to home. It's the market that you know the best. If there is something that goes catastrophically wrong, you either need to be there or you're going to need to find people in whatever market it is that can support you. And they need to be really good at supporting you, and they need to be really responsive. That could be friends and family. Plenty of people are able to expand that way if they have somebody that they know they can call it at midnight to go take care of a plumbing leak. Or if you have a team of cleaners that are fantastic. I always say cleaners are the lifeblood of short-term rentals. If you have cleaners that are able to do all of the other stuff, like bringing in bringing in the Amazon packages or whatever you have coming to the property, they're able to be your eyes and ears, your boots on the ground, then you're also in a really good position. But you have to make that decision for yourself. I always recommend being at least within a driving distance of your properties when you're just getting started.
This might be an it depends answer, so don't feel bad if you have to pull shoot on this, but what's the typical profit spread after expenses that you should aim for an arbitrage rental opportunity?
You want. Yeah, right. I mean, you should be aiming for profitable, and you want to aim for comfortably profitable, because if you have a downturn, you're still locked into that long-term rental agreement, right? You're going to be paying no matter what happens on the short-term rental side, you will be paying your landlord. So make sure that you're comfortably in the green or in the black. Now, what I would say in terms of that comfort level is personal. I would aim for like 20 to 25% on your as your net profit on a deal like that. The reason why is because if you're less than that, right? If you're just in the teens, and then something happens, now you might even be in single digits, and your money would be better in the market. Like if you just put it into a low cost ETF, and that's what I'd say. Like if your money is better served somewhere else, then don't spare yourself the headache of rental arbitrage and do that. It'd better be a profitable business for you. So yeah, great. That's about as deep as I can go on that one.
That's awesome. Okay, we're going to take one more question. Before we go to that, just a reminder, if you have requests for topics that you'd like to see in future webinars, I'd love to hear them. So drop them in the chat, or you can email marketing@hostaway.com. But definitely let us know, because would love to hear what the people want to hear. Okay, so last question. So putting yourself in your owner's shoes, why would an owner want to rent to an arbitrager as opposed to working with a property manager for short-term rentals?
Yeah, so they would want to work with an arbitrager because, well, the first thing is they might get some they might get the safety of that longer term contract. That's number one. It's the steady, dependable income. Sometimes with arbitrage, you can even, again, transition this into a model where you are able to get some sort of equity ownership in the property. Like say you try it out as an arbitrage first, and the owner is able to see how profitable it is. They might still not be willing to do the work to actually do short-term rentals themselves, but you can work it into a larger contract with multiple units, where say you take an equity stake in exchange for meeting certain income thresholds. So it can really have an upside for the long-term investor who might just want the passive income. All right, this might be somebody who's retired and is able to run 50, 100 units long-term without really having to do anything. So yeah, it can be a windfall for them. Again, you keeping the property in great condition. If there are any issues, you're addressing them. So any sort of mold, any rot, any plumbing issues, they're getting fixed immediately, and it's not leading to longer term, more expensive repairs of the property. And that's again saving that owner the time and headaches that can come from delayed repairs. Additionally, you are able to get into the unit much more often, so you're able to see if any damage has been caused. There are even features like Minute, for example. That's another integration that I can plug here. That will be able to monitor noise. So if the concerns are around parties being thrown or any of the other horror stories that you hear about short-term rentals, you could assuage the concerns of that long-term owner, that long-term renter. That long-term landlord by informing them as to what you have available technology-wise to make sure that things are being done safely. That's smart locks. That is noise sensors. And yeah, I would say that there's a lot of arguments that you can use once you learn what can be done to protect you in the short-term rental space. And a lot of those things are available as integrations with Hostaway. So I'd recommend you check them all out.
Wonderful. Kyle, thank you so much for coming on today, for answering all the tough questions, for being so open about your experience. There's just a ton of value, I think, in hearing the real life struggles, the real life opportunities, and the real life wins that someone in your position it gets to experience. So thank you so much. If anyone wants to get in touch with you, I'm assuming LinkedIn is probably a safe bet.
Yeah, I think LinkedIn is great. My last name is very easy to spell, Loveland. If you search for Hostaway, you'll find a bunch of really helpful people there. But hit me up on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to answer questions or talk short-term rentals. I basically eat, sleep, and breathe it now. So yeah, thank you so much, Ben. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you, Kyle. Last request from me to submit your topics, your future webinars. Marketing@hostaway.com would be the best place to do it. And thank you all for attending. Thanks for letting me sit in the host seat this month. And we'll see you again next month. So thanks everyone for joining. Recording will be up later today, maybe tomorrow. I'll do it.
No promises.
Thanks, everyone.
You'll get it when you get it. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys.